in the person of Samuel Iheagwam. Um, okay, I would not be all right. So Samuel has been a very, very wonderful mentor for us at Step Up Africa. I mean, we've so much enjoyed the support and his dedication to saying that his dedication to raising tech talents in Africa as a whole. So I would like to bring him up. But before I do that, I would want to read his profile or just read something that says talk a little about him. And while I do so, I would love us to give Samuel his flowers and appreciate him, right? Because he's doing a whole lot, right? He has a program by 3 p.m. So he should either be resting or doing something else. Or I mean, because he's a data analyst, so he should actually be resting because it must have actually been a long week. But he's here to talk with us. And please urge us to pay attention, grab a book, pen. You can also get your Excel opened up on your laptop, right? And please let's all do well to ask him questions, questions as pertaining to the data analyst world, right? I mean, there's a whole lot that comes up that should be in place with this tech career, right? And we all have questions, we all have our doubts, we all have our concerns, we all have our interests that you would want to know more about. So please let's do well to also ask questions. Someone will be willing to answer them within the 2 hours that is here with us. So without further ado, Samuel is a growth-oriented data professional with extensive experience in multiple data roles and a mastery of complex data tools. His unwavering passion for leveraging data to solve problems and collaborating with teams to deliver exceptional value has propelled him to create products that genuinely captivate users and drive business success. In addition to his remarkable track of developing innovative data products and securing investor support for data-led projects, his expertise extends to being a seasoned data trainer, which is why he's also more than interested to be here. Having trained over 3,000 individuals from around the world, I mean, that's a large number. And it's not just Africa, from around the world. This is also to let you know that we're not bringing in substandard to you at Tech Up Africa, right? We try our best to bring in the best of the best, right? And its profound impact resonates globally, enabling clients to unlock the full potential of data for unparalleled business success. So with a good virtual applause, I'd like us to introduce Samuel as he comes up to speak with us. So Samuel, over to you. Would love to hear from you. It's looking like only Samuel is just laughing. Okay.
Um, Hi Joy. Good morning.
Hi Samuel.
Good morning.
Nice to have a meeting with you again.
Yeah, same here. Good to be here again. Hi everyone. Good morning. I trust we're all doing great.
Yes. I particularly am doing great, and I'll do better with $100 million. I know you can support my ministry.
Okay. So we'll look at what we can contribute to that. But yes, definitely. All right.
Right. Okay.
Okay, so I can go on now, right?
Yeah, sure.
All right. Awesome. Hi everyone. Good morning. My name is Samuel. So I think it's best to just ignore every other thing that Joy has said. I think those are just lumber, right? I'm just a data person, and I'm happy to be here already, right? 100 waiting. Okay. It's good to have everyone here, and I think I'm more honored, right, and excited to be here as well. I was at this point some years back, right, keying into opportunities and learning massively. So I'm glad that everyone is here, and I'm also able to impact or share the little knowledge that I have amassed over time. So before we proceed, right, I think I'd like to hear from a good number of us. Some of the things that we've done so far, the challenges that you're having, and let's see how we can take it from there. In the meantime, I think Joy shared me the I'm not sure. Okay, I think I should just mention points, the points that we could look at today, right? So while we are trying to get familiar with everyone and understand what are some of the challenges that you've experienced, I think you can also take out your time to download this to your device so we can try to work with it. I just sent a spreadsheet to the chat so you can try to have it downloaded to your device. So let's hear from some of us. What are the challenges that you've experienced so far? How's your learning been? What are the exciting things so far? And then the challenges. So maybe just a few persons, and then we can proceed to um, looking at what we have for today. So let's see. Anyone wants to go first? Just a small number of persons. So if you want to go, please just use the raise hand button. So if I don't get any volunteers, I think I'll probably just call at random. So let's see who wants to go first. All right then. So let's see. Hi, let me start off with Kabiru. Hi Kabiru. Good morning.
All right, let me give you names of people that will talk. Hi Jemima. Hi Judah Temiluluwa. Please, let's hear from you what you've learned so far and how learning has been so far.
Hi, Joy. Hi, Mr. Samuel. Good morning. I'm sorry, I'm on the road. That's why I didn't know how to unmute.
It's
Um,
fine.
okay, but yeah, challenges. The course has been really good so far. It's a challenge because I've never really been in the tech space. I've used Excel, right? When I was much younger, I used to use Excel for just for play, basically in secondary school on my dad's laptop. So I just know that I had a lot of boxes and there's something called a worksheet and there's something called a workbook and all of that. But when it comes to using Excel for actually analyzing data and more serious stuff, it started to look like is this how am I going to do this? But the courses have been really simplified and it makes it more I feel like I can actually do it, something I can actually do. And I'm sure that I'm sorry for all the noise. I'm sure that as I continue, I'll get better at it. Yeah, basically.
All right, awesome, awesome. Thank you very much for that. Okay, so let's hear from let me see. Give me a moment.
So Ianu's hand is raised, and Ianu, I think
Yeah,
you
yeah,
can
she
go
can go ahead.
ahead. Good morning, Ianu. So we cannot hear you clearly. And I think it's your mouthpiece. Your voice is very distant.
Can you hear me now? I was connected to my
Yeah.
Bluetooth. Sorry.
Oh,
Is
yeah,
it
no
better
problem.
now?
Yes, it is sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, good morning to Mr. Samuel, our mentor. It's really nice to meet you. So, for my own feedback on the courses so far, the introductory part, well, I would say I have a little background in analytics, but with what I've learned so far, I'm like 50% into introductory part to Excel. It's been interesting, as earlier said by the other lady. It's quite simplified. very understandable, and it's very perfect. Like after learning, you get to practice with data, then you need to answer questions. So you are forced to actually go through those courses very well and be able to attempt the questions. So it's been very practical, understandable. However, yeah, there can be little challenges, timing too for me, work and everything. But it's been great. And I don't know how often we'll be having this mentoring or mentorship classes. I don't know how often it will be, but I bet that we need it really so that we can be sharing some concerns. So thank you. It's been interesting for me.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much for that. So yes, I believe that we should have more of the mentoring sessions, right? So we can share concerns. But if people are not indicating that they have concerns or so, I don't think there's any way we can be able to understand whatever pain points or concerns they have, right? So let's take Kwan. I hope I got that right, and then Innocent lastly. Hi Kwan, please go ahead.
Okay, hi everyone. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I think the course is quite great, but I was hoping for, I hope these mentoring sessions are going to be more frequent, because for some of us, we are visual and audio-led learners. So reading sometimes becomes a problem to understand concepts. I have to go back on YouTube and then watch a whole host of videos to actually understand. But so far so good, paired with the mentorships where I'm able to, as a visual learner, I'm able to talk to a mentor. I think it will be much greater for us. Thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you very much. I'm also hoping that the session gets to be more frequent as well. So thank you very much for that. I think we can proceed, and yeah, give me a moment. I'm just going to turn off my notifications for work, so I don't get messages coming in during the sessions. So it's going to. Okay. Okay, so I think we're good for now. Okay. Start notification. Okay. All right, perfect. Okay, so I can put on my screen. Then yeah, we can begin. I believe everyone can see my screen now. Okay, so if you're just joining, I share the data sets to the chat, and I hope everyone gets to download it. I think I can just have it pinned. Hi Joy, I think there should be a way for you. Okay. So let me just pin this. Yeah, just pin this so anyone joining should be able to see it. All right. Don't speak. That's fine, Kabiru. Okay, so let's go on. So what we have for today, right, is to look at Excel fundamentals. So everyone, in the last couple of days, have been upskilling with Excel, right? Being able to learn how to prepare data in Excel, understand the concept of lookups and pivot tables. Also carry out some data visualizations using Excel, right? And then lastly, we can take some questions where necessary by the end of the session. Now, the session today is going to be hands-on. I think what we can do in all of these, I think we can look at how to prepare data first off in Excel. Then next, we will talk about pivot tables. And then next, if we have the time, we'll talk about data visualization. And then lastly, we can talk about the essence of lookups in Excel. During each of these, I would appreciate if we take questions in between, although not too much of a question, right? I'd mostly appreciate if we have the questions put to the chat, and then I can look at them at intervals, right? So, yep. So we have a data set that we're going to look at today, which is the module 3 data analysis spreadsheets. Now, this is a data set from one of my past programs with entry level, right? So we're going to look at how we can prepare this data and then work with it for today. If you have it downloaded already to your device, right, you can just launch it on your device and then we can look at that. If you're yet to download it, once you click on the sheet, right, then you can click on file and scroll down, download as an Excel file, right? So that should do. Now we have a short time already, so we would just proceed. Then, okay, so I have the data set on my Excel already. This is what it looks like on my Excel. So this data set basically contains information about courses, the prices of the courses, the number of persons that subscribe to those courses, number of reviews that a particular course amassed, the level of that particular course, the ratings, the content duration of the course, and then the time it was published, right? And of course, what subject a particular course belongs to. So we have all the courses here, and if you have a proper look at it, you'd notice there are 4 sheets in this particular data set, right? So I'm not sure why this is colored. So there are like 4 sheets in this particular data set. So we're going to look at how we can work with them. Now, first things first, let's understand what data preparation actually means. I believe you'd have gone through that in your program, but just permit me to so data preparation. So when we talk about data preparation, right, we're basically talking about cleaning data and all those, right? So we can say data preparation is the process of collecting data first off, right? Cleaning the data next to make sure that it's all good. Transforming the data, right, to make sure that it's standard enough for whatever analysis that you want to do. Ensuring accuracy, reliability, and the likes, reliability, yep, and carrying out your analysis, right? So data preparation, basically collecting data, cleaning the data, transforming the data, ensuring that the data is accurate and reliable for the analysis. Now, during your data process, I think we can also put, let me do this, just set one cell up, shift cell down. Yep. So we can also put enrichment. Yeah. So we can put enrichment there. So we'll just talk about them briefly and then see how we're able to get it done. Now, when it comes to data collection, you are basically collecting data from a variety of sources, right? It could be from maybe your Excel, it could be from a database, right? There's SQL database, there's non-SQL databases, right? So it could be from either of those. You could be collecting your data from a website. You could be scraping your data as well from any platform. Example, you can decide to carry out an analysis of Twitter users on a particular topic or opinion, right? You can also decide to do so. You go on LinkedIn. Oh, everyone seems to be talking about the AI trend lately. So let me scrape data from LinkedIn and find out what are people's perspective about AI within this particular period of time. Right, so you collect your data from a variety of sources. So I'll just do this, data sources. It's also important to understand whether your data is stored in an organization internally, or you have to get it elsewhere, right, externally. You need to also understand your primary and your secondary data sources. Then when it comes to cleaning data, we would be looking at things like inconsistencies, so we'd also be looking at things like errors, duplicates, and many more, right? Now, when it comes to transforming data, we will be looking at things like data types, structure or format of the data, right? Whether it's a wide data or whether it's a long data, and then we can see to have it properly sorted, right? Then we can also be looking at, for enrichment, we can be looking at things like maybe merging data, pending the data, basically combining data, right, from two or more sources to make it a full-fledged data for the purpose of your analysis. And then, of course, for accuracy, you're looking at ensuring that your data is accurate at all times and is reliable, right? Now, let's look at this particular data and what we can do with it. Just going to have this deleted. So first off, this is like just going to go like first sheet. So we have about 4 sheets here, 1, 2, 3, and 4, right? So the next we're going to do is to try to work with this particular data. So like you all know, there's the data tab here in Excel. So you click on the data tab and try to collect your data from whatever source that it's stored in, right? Now, in this case, our data set is an Excel file, right? When you downloaded the data set, you'd see that it has a .xlsx, which means that this is an Excel file, right? So we have it downloaded to our device, and then we can proceed. Now, once you click on the data tab, depending on what version of Excel you work with, you would find either the get data, where you can see from file, from database, from Azure and the likes, or you would find the new query on your device. So it's either you get data or you new query, right? So whichever you have, then you just click on it. Now, if you're clicking on whichever one on your device and it's not giving you this list or options, then you're most likely clicking on the wrong one. So for some persons, you might have get I think external query or something like that, or get external data. So there are different things, right? So it's either you're getting get data on your end or new query. Now, once you click on from file, I hope everyone is also doing this on their end. I'd appreciate for that. Once you also click on from file, right, then you'd be able to see some of the options to collect your data from. Is your data stored as an Excel workbook or a text file or CSV file or an extensive markup language file or maybe a JavaScript file, right? Or even a PDF. Maybe you have your data set in a PDF file, right? You can click on PDF
Yes.
to get it from there.
Sorry, Samuel.
Hi.
Hi, I think Jemima wants to speak. She wants to say something, maybe as regards to your.
All right. Please go ahead.
Jemima, please go ahead. Hi, Jemima. Okay, maybe she raised her hand by mistake. I'm so sorry about that. You can continue, please.
All right, that's fine. Okay, so let's proceed. So you have the data, right? And then you get data, and then from file, in this case, if you wanted your data from a database, you do this and select whether from a SQL Server database or any other database that you can connect from Azure, from Power Platform, right? From other sources, maybe from an existing table or from the web, right? Or from any of the old data feeds. You can also get your data from a picture. Maybe, for example, you have your data set snapped, right? You can just get it from there and be good. Blank query as well, combine queries, and we're good. Now, in this case, we have our data as an Excel file. So we'll click on this and locate it from where we've downloaded it, which in most cases would be on our download folder, right? So we have it downloaded. So we're going to get it from there, right? So I'll do this and click on import. Please let me know if you're done with that on your end. You can just leave some reactions. Okay. Now, once you have it done, you should get something like this. If you are not having something like this, then you probably have done it differently. So in this case, what we do here is to preview the data to be sure that this is the actual data that we want to work with, right? So we have our file, the module 3 data analysis spreadsheet. Then we can preview each of the files in it. So we have these with all of these details that we can see, quite a number of nulls. Okay, so we can see this. Now the question you're going to ask yourself is this the data you want to work with? If this is the data, then of course you can go ahead and have it selected. We're also going to preview the next one. You can see some of the problems that the data has as well. The next one as well, some of the data that the problem also contains. But one thing for sure is that this is the data we want to work with, right? But now we can be able to see that it has some sort of problems that would need to sort out while carrying out our data preparation. Now, in this case, we want to work with all 4 sheets, right? The business sheet, the design sheet, the music sheet, the web design sheet. So we're going to click on the select multiple items here. Now, if you do not click on this select multiple items, first off, you see that both your transform data and your load will not be activated. But once you do this, right, and you can select each of them. So these are the data sets that I want to work with, right? All 4 of them. Now, in the case where you want to work with just one sheet, then you can only select that one particular sheet, right? So in this case, we want to work with all 4 of them because they contain different information that we want to look at. So we're selecting the business, the design, the music, and of course, the web. Once you have it all selected, one thing I always advise, right, is do not ever click on the load before you transform. Always make sure that you transform your data first before you load, right? There's a process in data science, data analytics called ETL, which stands for extraction of data, transformation of data, and loading of your data. So it's always advisable to follow that process, right? Extract your data from the data source, which we've done. We've extracted our data into this, right? And now we're previewing the data. Next, we want to do is to transform the data. And once we're done transforming the data, the next step is to load it into our analytic tool, right? So in this case, we're going to click on transform data, having selected all 4 sheets. Are we all together? Anyone? Everyone? Let me see. Are we all together? Okay, so we'll do this. ETL versus ELT. Yes, absolutely. So there's the ELT, right? Which stands for extraction of data, loading of your data, and transformation afterwards. But those are like in different cases. Majorly when you're looking at working with your data warehouses, right? Those are when, and there are like tiny cases where you have to perform the ELT, right? But in most cases, it's the ETL that you have to work on, right? Or carry out. Now we have our data in what is called the Power Query Editor in Excel, which is basically a dedicated or specialized cleaning tool, right? So all we get to do is clean data, transform the data, manipulate the data, properly make sure that our data is sorted well before we can carry out our analysis. So that's everything you get to do in the Power Query Editor in Excel. Now, if you have a lesser version of Excel, you most likely will not have the Power Query Editor, right? So I'm hoping everyone gets it. Now, some of the things that you may find here would be, oh, I have a valid, an error, and an empty here, right? I'm not sure if you have it on your end, but if you don't, please go to the View tab and check if you are able to find the column quality. If you find the column quality, then yes, you can be able to work with that. If you cannot find the column quality, then it means you have a lesser version of Excel and cannot find that. Now, the column quality does not take anything away from you, right? It just basically helps you to easily detect the quality of your columns. Are there null values or missing data in my columns, right? And that's just all, right? Tells you how much valid data you have in your columns. So if you have the column quality, please turn it on and then we're good. All right, so go to your view tab and select column quality and we should be good. Like I mentioned, if you don't have it, it's absolutely fine. There's no cause for alarm, right? But if you have it, that's good for you. Now we can see here that we have our various columns in this particular data. You can see the column property here or the data, 26 columns and over 1,000 rows, right? So we're previewing based on the first 1,000 rows that we can find here. So we have over 1,000 rows for this particular data. Now let's look at our 26 columns. We have the course ID, course title, the URL, the price of the courses, the number of subscribers, number of reviews, number of lectures, the level, the rating, the content duration, the published timestamp, and the subject. Now we can see that we have other inconsistent or unneeded columns, right? Also notice something different. For every other column, we have almost 100% valid. However, for the columns without actual names, we have 100% empty, which means these columns, they are probably just there from our Excel file, right? And we can't do anything with them. Now, in this case, what we're going to do will be to have them discarded. During your data cleaning process, you have a number of options, right, to carry out. One of which is going to discard columns that are not going to be needed for your analysis. So in this case, we have from column 13 up until column 26, and we can have it all removed. And there are a number of things that we can do here, right? But I think we'll just try out one particular thing so we can save time and achieve credible things. So what we're going to do will be to come here, click on column 13, right? And then scroll to the end where you have column 26. Hold your shift key on your keyboard and click on column 26. I'll take that again. First things first, select column 13 by clicking on it, and then go to the end where you have column 26. Hold your shift key on your keyboard and click on column 26. That way it highlights or does a multiple selection from column 13 until column 26. So it selects everything in between 13 and 26, right? Once you have that done, I think I'll take that one more for persons who are still trying to catch up. Select column 13 first, then scroll to the end where you have column 26 and hold your shift key on your keyboard and select column 26. Once you do that, it's going to highlight everything between 13 and 26. Then you can right click on any of the columns, any one of your choice. You can right click on any of them and remove the selected columns. So remove columns. Please do not remove other columns at this point in time. Remove columns. Take that again. Right click on any of the selected columns and remove column. So once you do that, you're now left with 12 columns all the way from 26. Now we can be sure that all 12 columns that we have here, they all contain valid data, right? So we're good. We can also cross-check the other tables to see if we have similar occurrences. And of course, we do in the next table. So we can likewise repeat the same process. Select column 13, scroll all the way to the last, column 26, hold your shift key, select it, right click on any of them and remove columns. Now, this is one way of preparing our data for analysis, right? We're trying to make sure that it is properly in a standard format. So we're removing every column that is irrelevant for our analysis. If you're done with that, you can go on to the next table or sheet and check if you have a similar occurrence. Now we have a similar occurrence, right? So let's try something else in this particular case. Now this time around, we're going to select the first column and then go to the last valid column, which is subject. Hold your shift key and select that. So we're just trying to try out something different, right? But it's the same outcome at the end of the day. So you select your first valid column, which is course ID. Then go to the last valid column, which is subject. Then hold your shift key and select it. Then right click on any of your columns. And this time around, you can remove all the other columns that have not been selected. So we can see it. In the case of remove columns, you know exactly what you're removing. In the case of remove other columns, you know exactly what you're removing, right? So you're removing everything that's not selected. So you can do that and remove all of those. I believe we're all good with that. So if you have that sorted, you can see we also have 12 columns. So next we can go on to the last sheet or table and check if we have a similar occurrence. So in the last table, we do not have that. However, we can see that we have less than 1% empty in some columns, less than 1% empty in some columns. I think we also have, likewise, on some other ones, we have about 32% empty. Here we also have about 40% empty. And here we also, okay, so we don't have any for the first one. So now, the very first step that we've taken is to remove irrelevant columns, right? Now let's also look at it from the row aspect. Let's see if these rows are irrelevant, right? So we have 40% of rows that are empty, which also translates to meaning that these rows could have missing data, or no data could have been entered, or it could have been that there were just excess rows that were also captured in the table. So let's have a look at that. Now, in order to do this, we're going to click on our filter button here. Click on our filter button here, and then we can, so we're going to unselect everything and select null. I'll take that again. You can click on any of your filter button here. By filter button, you have your course ID, and then there is a button to the right of it, right? That has like an arrow going downwards. So you can click on that, unselect all, and select to see only the null values. So once you do that, you click on OK. And this way, you can see all the data that are empty. So you can see there's so much null, so much null. So this means that it is not an actual case of missing data, right? Because there's no valid data here and there that we can be able to say, oh, it contains some data, right? So in this case, we have 100% empty, which means these data, these are not data, right? They are just excessive rows that were captured in our table. So what we can do is to get rid of these guys. But we're not going to do that right now because it might be chaotic for us at the end of the day, right? So what we'll do will be to first come here where you have your applied steps. I believe everyone has the applied steps on their end. Now, on the right-hand side, you should be able to see all the steps that you've taken until where you are currently. So first off, we had our data connected to our data source, and then the navigation was set up. The headers of the column were promoted, right, or given the proper headers like the course title, URLs. We removed columns, which of course we did, right? The data types were recognized by Power Query. And then lastly, we have the filtered rows, which we just performed. Now, what we're going to do in this case would be to click on the X button for filtered rows. Everyone, please click on the X button for filtered rows. When you do that, it's going to revert your table to its original state. Now, there's a reason why, right? You don't remove your rows when your table is filtered. You end up getting stuck, right? So you need to make sure that your table is reverted to its original state before you can do that. Like I mentioned, under your applied steps, you'd see your filtered rows. Click on the X button for filtered rows, right? So that way it reverts your table back to its original state. Once it does that, then you can click on your filter button again for the second time. And this time around, you can remove empty. Now, this is because you've carried out your observation on that particular data, and you've seen that they are not missing data, right? They are just basically excessive columns, rows rather, that were captured in your data or table. So you click on your filter button for any of your columns and remove your empty. When you remove the empty, you are now left with 602 rows from over 1,000 rows. 602 rows from over 1,000 rows, right? I believe we're on track, everyone. Okay, so we're good to go. So we've now been able to get rid of the irrelevant columns and also the irrelevant rows, right? So next we can try out for the next one to see if we can also perform similar. So the next one also has about 32% empty. Now, I always advise, make sure you thoroughly go through your data before you perform any action, right? Just to be sure that it does not affect you. But in this case, we want to save time. So we're just going to go on ahead and remove empty. Just click on the filter button and remove empty. This is because we're trying to save time, right? In every other case, I always advise, take your time and go through your data. If there's a reason why you have empty here, you want to be sure to have a proper understanding of why there are empty records, right? By filtering it. So we've done the same for the second table with irrelevant rows. So we can do for the third one. Now the third one is a bit tricky because unlike the other ones that contain 60% plus 30% plus, the last table has less than 1%. This means that we have to take our time to carefully go through it. Otherwise, if we decide to go and do the same thing and remove empty, we might just end up removing credible data. So in this case, we're going to filter it and unselect everything and select to see only the nulls. Click on OK, and we have only 2 rows, right, which makes up the less than 1% empty. So we have this, we're going to cross-check properly, and we have only one record on the subject aspect. Now, this means that there's no data for course ID, course title, every other part, but there is data for the aspect of web development. So what do we make of this? Now, we can think of this, right? Is this a valid data? Should we have it removed? Should we retain it? What can we do with it? What's the best approach to it? Now, there are so many questions that we want to ask, right, to be able to get our answers. However, we can decide to take a scenario. So think about this, right? No user registered for the course, right? Okay, before talking about the course or user, so let's say there was no course, right? No course with a valid ID. There was no course title. There was no URL. There was no price stated for the course. There was nobody that subscribed to the course because, of course, it's non-existent, right? No reviews because there's no cost to learn from and then give your reviews. No number of lectures, no rating, no duration, nothing, absolutely nothing. But there is a subject, right? So does this actually make any sense? The answer is simple, absolutely no. Now, it will only make sense to, of course, our African politicians, right, when they are trying to make out money out of this. But to you and I, does this make any sense? Absolutely no. There's no way a subject could have emerged from anywhere, and then there's no course title, there's no pricing on it, there's no duration, there's absolutely nothing. So this means that this likewise is useless and we cannot work with it, right? So the same way we've also removed the previous rows, we'll do the same process for this as well. So we're going to come here and remove our filtered rows. So please go to your applied steps, look at where you have filtered rows and click on the X button for your filtered rows. So once you do that, it reverts your table to its original state. And now that you're informed of what the less than 1% consists of, you can click on the filter button and remove the empty. So now we have 100% valid rows across all our data. Are we all together? Okay. So let's proceed. Now this is all a part of your data preparation, right? So whether it's cleaning the data, removing all of these irrelevant columns and rows, right, or transforming the data, we're all carrying out the same process. So now we've done this for all four. We've removed columns that are not relevant. We've also removed rows that are not relevant. So let's go back to our first sheet to look at what we can do next. Now, next we can look at will be our data types, right? Let's be sure that the data types are correct, right, for each of our columns. Now, data type is how we tell a particular data that is being entered into a column, right? So in this case, or is how your computer as well tells what data is being entered into your columns. So in this case, we have a data type of 1, 2, 3, which of course translates to numerical data type, right? Or integers. When you click on it, you can see a list of other data types, decimal numbers, currencies, whole number, percentage, date, text, and your true or false, right? You have your binary as well. Now, we're going to cross-check across each of the columns to be sure that it works out fine for us. So, on places where we have course ID, is the data type correct, right? So those are like things that we need to properly check. So we need to look at the data type here, the column name, and the data inside of a particular column. So we're going to compare all three of them. Oh, this is a course ID. And a course ID, or should a course ID be numerical? Absolutely yes. In some cases, yes, it should be numerical, right? But if it's numerical, should it have a 1, 2, 3 here indicated as a numerical data? Absolutely yes. Right. So once we have that, then we're sure that the course ID has a good data type and we're good to go. It's in its correct data type. So likewise, do the same thing for the other columns. Course title has a text in here, which is already denoted here that it's a text data, so correct. So URL is good. The price is also good. Number of subscribers is numerical, so this is good. Reviews as well is numerical, so this is good. Lectures, good. Level, perfect. The ratings, now the rating is 0.56, 0.95, and this is the rating okay. So we can't be too sure about this, right? So let's see some of the things that we can try out. Now it could be that from this particular data, this is how the rating is, right? Could most likely be in a percentage. Let's see what happens when we take it to a percentage. Okay, so this is 56%, 95%. Let's see if we have more than 100%. Okay, so we have 100%, right? So I think that makes sense. But let's see if we have more than that. Okay, so that makes sense, right? So our rating most likely can be in percent. Oh, so this course was rated 100% by everyone who viewed this course or subscribed to this particular course and the likes, right? So we can decide to either retain the original state of our data this way, right? Or we can make it a percentage value, right? If it works fine for us. Now you want to be very careful during your data cleaning and transformation or manipulation, because in this case we're manipulating the data, right? So you want to be careful not to do things that would jeopardize the credibility of your data. So like I said, two things here, right? In this case, we can either retain it as a percentage, we can keep it as a percentage, or we can retain it as a decimal. I'm just going to cancel this, or we can keep it as a decimal, right? So whichever one that we choose to, it is absolutely fine, right? It's absolutely fine. Or let's keep it in its original state. If there's a need for us to bring it back as percentage, we can always come back to it and have it sorted. Now the content duration, in this case, we have 8, we have 1.5, 10. Let's see the highest that we have here. So we can scroll down. For content duration, we have about 78. Now, in this case, we cannot be able to decide whether the content duration should be an actual time, or this means 8 hours, or 1 hour, 1.5 hours or so, right? I think it should be 1.5 hours if we're translating it to be that, right? This could be a 10-hour course. This could be a 3.5-hour course, right? And the likes. But all we can do is to make assumptions. So in this case, we can only go to the actual data or to the data source or to whoever collected the data. So in a business case, right, or in an organization, you'd be looking at who has collected the data and how we can be able to confirm the actual details, right? So we don't sit on too many assumptions. Now, as a data analyst, your work is off assumptions, right? Of course, you can make assumptions to help you get better to understand certain concepts, but you do not want to depend so much on assumptions. So in this case, we're not setting on what the content duration is, right? So we're going to retain its original state as well. We can decide to say, let's change it to a duration. And this is what it's going to look like. But we don't know if this is even accurate, right? So unless you're certain that this is accurate, right, then you do not want to do something like this. So if you're certain this is accurate, then you can leave it this way. If you're not certain, you can most likely take it back to its original state. Now, like I said, you have to be very careful when you're manipulating your data, right? So in this case, we're leaving rating and content duration in their original state. Now, another thing that can also be considered will be, are these columns necessary for the analysis that we want to carry out? Are they going to be able to provide us any insights into what we're looking at? Maybe the course performance, how well a course has performed. Can we be able to look at the duration of the course to its performance, right? If a course has like a longer duration, does that guarantee that it's going to perform well? If a course has a higher rating, does that guarantee that it's going to perform well, right? Or what other relationship can we be able to extract? So if these are relevant columns, you can leave them in their original states and figure out what to do later on. If not, then you can go ahead to have them removed. So in this case, they seem to have potentials, right, for our analysis, so we'll retain them. Now we have the published timestamp here and the subject. One of the things that we can look at in published timestamp is we can decide to break the published timestamp into two. Maybe to have like a date and then we have a time, because it's currently having a date time data type, right? A combination of both date and time. So we can either decide to break it into two. One would have a date and the next would have a time, right? So those are like things that we can do. Our subject is absolutely fine, but we'll definitely come back to the published timestamp. That's fine with everyone. So far, all our data here seem to have their correct data types. So we can do a cross check on the other one. Everything would most likely be like the same. We're all good, most likely be like the same. And then we can proceed next. So as part of our data preparation phase, right, we've also been able to observe and cross-check our data types to be sure that they are fine. For the places where they are not fine, we'll have them corrected. For the places where they are fine, we'll retain them that way. Now, for the places where there's some misconceptions or concerns around, right, we might need to keep them in their original state until we're very sure about that. So now that we have that done, right, now the next thing we can also do is to ensure that we cross-check our data effectively. One of the things that we also need to look out for would be, let me see what we can do next before we proceed. I'm trying to look at something else that works. Okay, so let's look at our data. Now, one of the things that we have not been able to do because of time is to have a careful observation of this particular data, right? Now, in this data, there's something that you need to always check. If you have the opportunity or the time, right, or the luxury of time, please make sure that you check your data carefully. Each row or column rather, please check them to be sure that they are all good. Now, in this case, we don't have the time to do that, but when you look at the subject column of the first table, you'd find out that it does not only contain one subject, as we can see right now. So every table should have like a particular subject, right, which should be able to indicate that, oh, these courses belong to this subject. But that is not the case in the first table. So if you had that time, you probably would have figured that out. Now we can see it shows us only business finance, right? However, when we click on load more, it tells us that there is both business finance here and there is both graphic design here as well. And of course, we have some stubborn nulls that refuse to be removed, right? So let's assume that we wanted to find out, why do we have a graphic design course in a business finance course, right? Or data table. So let's see only for graphic design. Click on OK. and let's understand. Now, for the case of the graphic design, this is all what we have. They are all very valid data. But then the problem now is we have an actual table that is supposed to hold all the graphic design courses. So what exactly is the problem here? Could it have been a mistake, right? Or one way or the other, something happened and then the data found its way there. Now we can also see that there are 12 columns here in this table and 602 records in the original graphic design table. We also go back here to check. Maybe it must have been that some of the data that was entered here were supposed to have been in the graphic design but found its way here. So let's see if we can take them there. But now we can see that there are also 602 records. Now, one of the things that we can look at would be, okay, so they are most likely the same data, right? So we can just remove it. As a data analyst, you need to be careful of your decisions. Whatever you perform, whatever action you perform, right, affects the next stage, right? So in this case, we cannot make assumptions again and say, you know what, I think they are like the same data, or maybe I've cross-checked some of them. Oh, there is 348116 here. Let me see, there's 348116, so they are most likely the same, right? So let me just delete everywhere that we have graphic design. Now, of course, we can do that, but what if there is unique data, or there are some data that we have here that are different from what we have on this other place? What then happens? We have lost some set of data that could have influenced our decision making, right? So in that case, we cannot be too hasty or rash in our decisions and then delete all these guys. What we can do instead will be to find a way to combine both tables together. Once we combine both tables together, we can then look at removing duplicates. So if there are duplicated data, we're going to flush them off and then retain only the valid data. Does that make any sense? I'll take that again. Now we have two tables that are supposed to have two different data. However, one of the table now has some records of the other tables. Now we cannot be certain if those records that it has are the actual same records that are on the other table. So we cannot say let's delete them off. Instead, we can find a way, merge the two tables together. Once we combine them together, we can then see, oh, so there are repeated data on some places. So let's remove those repeated data. That way, it leaves us with only the unique. So by the time we combine both tables, we have 602 here, we have 602 here. So if at the end of the day, we combine them and then we remove duplicates, we are then left with only 602 graphic design records, then it means all 602 of the other ones were repeated data, right? So, but if not, if we have more than that, maybe about 650 or 700 or maybe about 1,000 at the end of the day, it means that there were some unique data that we would be grateful for not removing them. So let's proceed. I'm going to unfilter this again, and we have all four of these. Now, the next thing that we want to do, right, is data enrichment. Now, in our case of data enrichment, we're looking at combining these tables together to make it one. Now, before you enrich your data or look at that aspect, you need to check for their properties. All four sheets or tables have the same number of columns, 12 columns on each of them. 12 columns on each of them. Please, I'll take your questions if you have them. Just put them in the chat and I'll take them. Now, all four columns, all four sheets rather, or tables, have 12 columns each. Now, this means something. You can decide to start thinking. So if they all have 12 columns, that's something, right, that they all have in common. Now, what else do they all have in common? We can see that they are all the same data, but with different subjects. So this means they have all the same column headers, the same column title, is what they have across all 4 sheets. Now that's another thing they have in common. Another thing they all have in common is the arrangement of these data. They are all arranged in the same way. So this means, this could mean something very, very valuable. Now, if they all have the same number of columns and they all have the same column headers or titles, then we could as well combine them into one big table. By the time we combine them into one big table, instead of now having separate table for each of them, we'll now have one big table that would be unique, right, based on the subjects that they have. So we can then have, oh, there's the web design courses, there's the graphic design, there's the business finance, and there's the music course. I believe that is making sense to everyone. So instead of having 4 different sheets, we'll just make them into one big table, and then we'll be good. So how do we get that done? Now, in order to get that done, we'll go to our home tab. Everyone, please go to your home tab here. Home tab, home tab, home tab. And when you're in your home tab, right, please note that I'm currently selecting the first sheet, right? When you're in your home tab, what you'd see here would be under the combine aspect or the combine ribbon, right? You'd see the merge queries and the append queries. Now, what we're going to do in this case is to either merge the data or append the data, but we need to understand what each of them actually represents. If you've ever been introduced to SQL, I'm not sure what this is. So if you've ever been introduced to SQL, right, you'd understand that the merge queries is the same as performing your SQL joins, right? While the append queries is the same as performing your union operations in SQL. So what does this mean? The merge queries simply would merge based on the rows. The append queries simply would append based on the columns. So what the merge queries does is that it looks at the rows. Are there similar rows based on a particular column? For example, we have column ID 49, 79, 8. The merge queries will go and look for that same value in another table and combine them together as one table. In the append queries, it focuses more on the column headers. Do I have a course ID here? Yes. Is there a course ID in the next table? Yes. So I can combine them together into one. So take it this way. The merge queries is going to put your data side by side with each other, which means you have table 1 here and table 2, and they will be side by side with each other horizontally, right? Well, so by horizontally, I mean they will be side by side with each other, which means you have course ID here, and then once you're done with subjects here, you have another course ID that's beginning from the next part and then showing you. So you have one big table or side by side with each other. On the case of your append queries, it's going to look at the column headers and put everything under each other. So which means you're having one column header and all the data would be under each other. So this means we have table 1 here with course ID this. We have all the data here. If we append query 2, or table 2 rather, it's going to push in all the data under this, right? So we have one course ID for both tables. Now that we've been able to understand this, right, we can go on ahead and click on append. When you click on the drop down here, then please append queries as new. I promise I'm going to take your questions shortly, right? I just want us to be done with this aspect first off. So you can click on the drop down here, go to append queries as new, and then you click on append queries as new. Please note that I mentioned append queries as new, not append queries. There are 2 different things, right? So if you do the earlier one, you'd most likely be doing something different from what we're doing. Now we are appending the data, right? Which basically means that we are concatenating or combining two tables to become one. So in this case, we have two tables or three or more tables. So we have three or more tables here, so we'll select this. And then on the left-hand side, we have all our available tables here. On the right-hand side, we can then see the tables that we want to append. So what we need to do would be to understand, oh, there's the business finance here already. So it's also on the right-hand side. So that is settled. We have the business design course. We need to bring it to the right-hand side. So we're going to add it to the right-hand side. We have the music course as well. We'll select the music course and add it to the next. We have the web design course, and then we'll also add it to the next. Now, what we've done basically is to say there are 4 tables available for us. So we want to append all 4 tables together, right? So please be sure that you're not selecting wrongly or more than 4. Once you have this done, 4 tables on the left-hand side to as your available tables, and 4 tables on your right-hand side that you want to append. So once you are good with this, we're then going to click on OK. So I'm concerned about time, so I may seem a bit fast, right? And I apologize for it. So we'll click on OK. Once you click on OK, you then have one big table called append 1. So we have one big table called append 1. Okay, so I believe we're good. Now that we have one big table called append 1, we can either come here under our query settings, we have the properties, the name, and then rename it from append 1 to something better. Or we can come here where we have append 1 under our queries. We can right click on it. And we can rename it. So whichever one works best for you. You can either come here, right click on it, rename it to something better. Or you can come here where you have it here and rename it to something better. So whichever one works for you. So I'm just going to name it to, let's call it appended data. Appended data, right? Or combined data, whichever one makes sense. I feel like appended is too much of an English. So let's call it combined data or consolidated, whichever one works best for you. I have so many problems with English. I sincerely have so many problems with English language. So so we have the combined data here, right? Which basically houses everything. So we can come here to subject and we can see that it contains business finance, graphic design, musical instruments, and web development. So this means that we've been able to achieve something very credible, right? We've now basically grouped all the data into one particular table. We've packed everything into one particular table, right? And this way we can then be able to better carry out our analysis. Now we can also see that we have this stubborn null, right? So let's go on ahead and understand who is this null and why is it terrorizing us. So we can see quite a number of nulls. How did they get here? Absolutely no idea, right? So, but then what we can do in this case is, because we've been able to establish that knowledge that there is nulls on these guys based on the subject, can go back to our original table and then we can filter and remove the empty. So we'll remove the empty, and this time around we no longer have those nulls, right? Because we've removed all the nulls from our work. Now, the next thing we want to do, right? The next thing we want to do, I think we have a short time left. So the next thing we want to do is to then revisit our duplicated guys, the guys that we believe that want to put us, in fact, that want to put our job on the line as data analysts, right? Because they just seem to be confusing us. So now what we want to do is to understand if we have actual duplicated data or not. So to do that, what I always advise is, first off, take your time, go through your initial data and understand the number of records that each table has. Before you remove duplicates, I always advise that find out how much data your table has at that point in time. And then when you remove duplicates, was there an effect? How much data are you now left with, right? So in this case, we have table 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have our final big daddy table, right? Called combined data. So what we're going to do right now would be to take counts of all the tables. I think I have my jotter here, so I'm just going to take counts and be sure that we have good values of them all. So first off, table 1, let's be sure. So for table 1, we have, let me see what we have here. Okay, so for table 1, I'm going to click on table 1, and to take a count, I'll just come here, click on this, and go to my transform tab. And then I can count rows. So when I count rows for table 1, I see that I have 2796 records. If you have 2796 records, then I believe we're on the same page. If you have way more than that, then I think you might just be blessed to have way more numbers than us. And if you happen to have less than us, I think we need to call you for questioning. We need to seriously investigate and interrogate you as to what you've done with our data. Right. So if you're having 2796 on your first record, then we should be good. We have this counted, so you can close your counted rows, right? So that your table goes back to its original state. So this is it. We can also do the same thing for the next one, transform, and we can count rows, 602. So I'm going to write that down, 602, and then I can do my calculations afterwards. 602 records on the second table. So under applied steps, we can remove the counted rows. So our table goes back to its original format. Do that for the next one and the next one and the next one. 680. So we have 680 here, and the next one we have 1203, 123, and then for the last one combined, we have 4278. So if you're not having 4278 after performing all of these actions, I am really not sure what we're supposed to do to you. I'm not sure if we're supposed to be sad about it, or we just need to ask you questions. So you most likely would need to check on the actions that you've performed if you're not having 4278 at the end of the day, right? So we have 4278 for our combined data. So we can go on ahead. We'll click on this button here. Everyone, if you can see my very lovely button. So you can click on this button here, and then you scroll down to where you find remove duplicates. So you scroll down to where you find remove duplicates. So when you remove duplicates, all right, then we can go and take a count again to see what we have. So we now have 387, 3687 after removing duplicates. So
Excuse
how many?
me, I have a question.
All right, please go ahead.
Please, can you go over how you combine the data once more?
Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll have that done. Just give me a moment. Okay. So we have 3687 after removing duplicates. So I think we can on our end do that calculation 4278 and subtracting 3687 from there. How many values have been found as duplicates and removed? Okay, so for the person who wanted to get the combination again, so here's what we did. We click on the first table here, and then we went to append queries. You can see append queries here, right? So you click on the drop down and append queries as new. So you click on append queries as new. You have your 2 tables, 3 or more, which we're going to work with. Then you have all your 4 tables on the left-hand side and your 1 table on the right-hand side. So you make sure that whatever table is here is also here. So we have 1 table there already by default. So we bring in the next one and click on add, bring in the next one and click on add, and bring in the last one and click on add. Once you're done, you click on OK, and it's going to append those tables together for you. Once you have that done, you can then give it a proper name by right-clicking and rename, or by double-clicking on it, or you can just come here and rename it from here. So either of them. So what do we have from 4278 subtracting 3687? Okay, so 591 records were duplicated. Now remember that we had 602 graphics design initially, so they most likely would have come from there, or we never know. It could have also been from another column or another table rather, but we can't be too sure unless we go and start doing those one after the other for these. I believe we're all good. So if you are on track with me, so you now have 3687 records at the end of the day for your combined data, then you're good to go. You can click on the close and load. Right. So in this case, we've been able to look at, okay, so before that, please hold on. Before that, I'm just seeing the published timestamp. Yes, so for published timestamp, we can then decide to split it into 2 tables, or 2 columns rather, and then have published time and published date. So I'm sorry if I seem to be fast. We kind of have like only 30 minutes left. So I have this here, published timestamp, right, on my combined data specifically. So I'm going to right click on it, and let's see if I have that. Okay, so I don't have it, but I have some things here that can work for me. But what we want to do is to break them down into 2 tables, right? So we're going to, do we need a timestamp? I don't think we need a timestamp, right? So let's look at it this way. We can perform 2 operations. One is to split the column, right? By clicking on this and split into 2. I think I'm just going to take that. So by splitting, we're going to split based on delimiters, right? I think this would just be for learning purpose. Everyone can just look at my screen for learning purpose. Then we'll look at the next one as well. So we'll split by delimiter of each space, which is separating the date from the time. So delimiter of what? A space. Delimiter of a space. We'll split at the leftmost delimiter, and then we're good to go. So this way we now have the published time, and this is the date rather, and the time. So we can decide to rename them better, right? So that's if we're splitting the column. Now, if we decide to not split the column, we just want to have only one column still, right? You can just right click on it. This is what I think everyone should also do. You can just right click on it, scroll down, and change the type from date time to date, and it should be good, right? So we can have it here this way. So you either split based on delimiter of a space, or you can just right click and change the data type from date time to time. That way we have it there, and then we can just look at the published date instead. So this is it, and we're good. Now, lastly, one of the things that we can do would be to look at the price column. There are zeros and there are other values, right? So we can create something that makes sense out of this. If the prices are zero, it means that they are most likely free courses, right? Courses that were not paid for. So they could have been as a result of a coupon, a free coupon, or the courses were entirely made free, right? Now, other than zero,
Um, Sorry for the interruption, sir.
yep, please go ahead.
I asked a question in the chat
Okay.
section. I was asking if on what condition do we use merge queries instead of append queries? Because according to your explanation, you said merge queries is like joins in SQL and
Mm-hmm.
append queries is like union. So on
Yeah.
what condition do we use merge queries instead of
Okay.
append queries for our consolidation? Thank
All
you.
right. Yeah. Amazing question. Okay, so let's look at this. All right. So we're gonna try something real quick before we come back to this. Now, in the case of the merge, right? So we can do this. First off, we have the this is our, what table is this? This is our business finance table, right? And this is our music table. Now, these are two different tables. They have nothing in common with each other, right? So let's merge them together and see what we mean. So we're going to merge them as new, right? Now, we're merging the business finance with the music table, right? Now, this is what it's looking at, right? So let's do an inner join. So let's do an inner join so that we can see for only matching records. Now, what is telling us now, you can see that our OK button is already grayed out, it's deactivated. There's no like similarity between these guys at all. So in the case of merge, right, it is not looking at all the column headers, right? As in the case of append. Append is looking at all the column headers. As long as they have the same column headers, the same data type in those columns, it's going to append. But in the case of merge, it is looking at the values. Can I find this value in this other table? Can I find something like this in this other table? So that's what it's looking at. If it can see that, it's going to merge them together, right? Because they are one single record. They may have different values, but as long as it can see the same course ID on here, it's going to do that merge. Now, because this is the music and it has nothing in common with the business, right? It's not going to do that. In the case of the web design, likewise, it has nothing in common with the business. But remember that our design courses that we had in business, here's what is going to happen. It's going to tell us that, oh, we can be able to, let me see. Okay, so not sure why this is. Give me a moment. Okay, only matching rows. So let me see. Okay, so I'm not sure why, but this should actually be giving me that. So it's still grayed out as well. I'm not sure why exactly in this case, right? But we should be able to have those values as previously, right? In this same guy. Give me a moment. Give me a moment. I'm just going to have this guy removed. I think most likely because of that. Yeah. So I'm going to come here and do that again. I'm going to merge. So it should work out fine this time around. Design. And I'm just going to do only matching record. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly why it's not. Let me see. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly why it's not looking at that, right? So there's most likely something going on. Okay, so but then you get the concept, right? So the merge is going to perform just like in SQL. So in SQL, you're joining based on a particular column, right? And it looks at only the values that are in that column, but also on the other table in that same column. So there's one here, there's also one on the other table in that same column. It's going to merge them, right? So that's the same thing that also happens in this case. I think I'll just quickly do this again. And I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, yes, you did. Thank you.
All right, awesome. So I've removed my append. Okay, so let me just do this real quick and then can do this. Combine data. And just gonna do this. Let's gonna come here and do this class. And I'm also going to come here and remove these duplicates. Okay, so I think we're back on track. Yes, so we're back on track. So lastly, what we're going to do, we have the price, right? So we can do something better with the price. We want to be able to tell whether it was a free course or it was a paid course, right? So if you look here, you would see there's 0, which is the only less values here. Other than 0, some courses were $20, $25, and up to $200, right? So but we have 0 here, so which means we can create something to tell us that, oh, in places where we have 0 as the price, then there were free courses, but anything other than 0 should be paid courses. So what we can do would be to come here to add column. So please first off select your price column and come here to add column and create a conditional column. I'll take that again. Select your price column first, go to your add column tab and click on conditional column. So when you create a conditional column, it asks you for the column name. So we can call it cost option. Maybe we can just call it cost option, maybe, or price option. Right. Cost status. Yeah, I'll just call it cost status. Cost payment status, or maybe cost payment status. So here we're going to say if our price column, right? So we select our price. So if our price column equals or has a value of 0, then what do we want to see in the new column? A value of 3. And change the data type here, and okay, we can just keep it, and then we can change it afterwards. And just keep it afterwards, change it afterwards further. So if price is equal to 0, then it has a value of 3 in our new column. Else, anything that is not 0 should what? Be considered as a paid course. I'll take that again. If the price column has a value of 0, then it should be called free. Otherwise, anything else that is not 0 should be regarded as a paid course, right? So once we have this done, we click on OK. And here's what we now have. We have free and we have paid. So for places where we have free courses, we're sure that they are actual 0. Right, can just decide to maybe drag it somewhere around there and then cross-check. I know some of us would probably be saying, oh, but how are we sure that that's what it is? So let's see. So I've dragged the column and we can see them side by side. Price is 0. The payment status is free. Price has a payment or an actual value. The payment says paid. 200 paid. 20 paid. Anything that is not 0 would become paid. So I believe this makes a lot of sense. Once you're good with this, you can then go to your home tab and close your data and load. Right, close your Power Query editor and load. So there's so much we can do in the Power Query editor. Right, so you can close and load, and it's going to load up into your Excel, and we can see what it's showing, getting data. It gives us a table format, right? Convert our data into a table, and then we can now see it this way. Let me look through the charts. Is there age limits to diving into career in data analytics? I absolutely think no, no, no. So I think maybe I should probably speak like for Nigerians. You probably, if you more on social media, right, on Twitter and Instagram, you probably know of Gigi, right, the guy that claims to be a financial expert. So I think I could probably say like him, right, that started making money at the age of 2. So I also started learning data analytics at the age of 2, right? And I think you can also be aged and still be good at that. Yours does not have column quality. Yep, so that's fine. Screen record after this. Okay, about that. Close the applied step. How do you locate it? Okay, so sorry, where to go? So let me see if we can. Okay, I'll take that back. I don't know what is going on here. So sorry, Peter. Peter Catherine. Every person on the same page with him. Okay. Let me see. Oh, Nancy said it's Power BI. Absolutely not. So we have the Power Query in Excel, hence why. So it's not Power BI. So Excel and Power BI are both built on the same machine, right? I believe we can check that out. So and Power BI run on same machine. Yeah, so both Excel and Power BI run on the same machine. So that's not what I mean. That's not what I mean. Is Excel and Power BI built on same machine or same engine rather? So I'm not sure the engine behind Power BI. This. So most likely, Power BI built on Excel. The first version of Power BI was based on Excel-based add-ins, right? So they have like similarities, a lot of similarities. Excel 2019. Yep. Thank you very much, Okumola Ruth. Yep. So they both have Power Query editor. Battery is about going off. AEDC, okay. How did you combine the data? I think we talked about that. And what condition do you think we should use the merge? Okay, so you asked that already. Is there age limits to diving into career and data analytics? Absolutely no. Can you leverage data analytics to break into Geo AI? I believe by Geo AI, you mean spatial analysis, something like that. I'd say yes. Remove or filter null values under a particular column. That means related records in their rows will be removed from this. Won't that skew our results? Absolutely no. So when it comes to removing null values, right, you need to understand it properly so that it does not cause you problems. Now, here's the thing. Let me go back here. Here's the thing. So we have our combined data. So I'm just going to go to our original sheet. So yeah, so let me see this. This is it. All right, and just quickly create one. Name, age, class. All right, so Samuel, I'm always 12 years old and I am in class 3. So we have Esther, who is also my dummy. She's about 17 and she's in class 5. And we also have James, who is also age 15 and is in class 5 with Esther as well. Right. So we have Yodun, who has no age and no class, right? So in some data tools, this would be nulls. Now, in this case, if you remove this value, do you think it affects any of this? Absolutely no. Now, let's say there's no name, but there's an age, 15, and there's a class, 3, right? So if you remove this value here, there's no name, right? But there's an age and there's a class. If you do, in this case, it might skew the data, right? But if on certain cases, right, this is not necessary for the analysis that you want to carry out, because this here has no name, which means that it is invalid. It probably would mean that the name was not entered, but there is a student that is aged 15 and also in class 3, right? So it could mean that this was not entered, but there's an actual student with these details. Then in this case, when you remove it, it's going to skew the data, right? Or lead to incomplete insights or report generation. But in the case where we have it as this initially, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it. If we also have it as this, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it, because they are not valid data, right? So in this case, nothing happens when we have that removed, right? So yeah, that basically answers your question. So you just need to be sure when you're removing your nulls. Now, another thing to also note is that when you're removing nulls, for example, right, you have null here and null here, but they are valid data in other places. Let's say Lagos, Patton, Abuja, and Port Harcourt. So let's say we have all of these, right? There are valid data here and here, but there are no valid data here. And then during your data cleaning, you figure that what you mostly need is these guys. Of course, this is important, but there's no data here to be able to carry out your analysis. So what you can do would be to understand that, oh, if you decide to remove this place where you have nulls, right? You're basically doing this. Remove that row. So it is flushing out that entire record, right? So you need to know when you're removing nulls from your data and how to go about it. Is it okay to remove it at this point in time? Is this the proper strategy at this point in time? Will it affect my data or my analysis if I remove it, and all of those, right? So once you're good with that, then you can be sure of what to apply. So now we have this, right? So this is our combined data, and you can see our queries and connections. Our data has been loaded, combined data, and all the different rows. You can just close here, right? Now this brings us to talking about the the pivot rather, the pivot table, which is basically an analysis tool. So we have the query here, which takes us back to our Power Query editor. Okay, so someone asked if they wanted to bring back their query settings, right? Which is the applied steps. So you close your applied steps, assume this is what you did. You can go to your view tab and click on query settings here. So it will come back right up again, right? So let me just do this. And so we have the table design here. Under the table design, we have the summarize with pivot, which takes us to our pivot table, right? And summarizes this. Yes, we want it in a new worksheet. So we click on this, and this is what our pivot looks like. So we now have a new tab called the pivot table analyze, that we can start analyzing our data to understand how certain things have worked, right? So here we can I believe I'm just going to be fast about this so we don't stay beyond our time. So I'm just going to say course ID. This means that we have this number of courses. So we're going to bring it here. Course ID, course ID. Let me see. That's not correct. So I'm just going to come here and do this file shoot settings and count course ID. Okay, so this is much better. So we can decide to find out for subjects, how many subjects we have. Right, so for each subject, this is the number of courses that we have for each of those subjects, right? We can also then decide to say we want to find out courses per subject. So we can call that that. Just going to copy this and copy, I'm going to paste around here. Then we can unselect this and find out the number of subscribers for each of those subjects. So we bring this here. So this is the number of subscribers for each of those subjects, right? So we can start having these subscribers per subject, right? And of course, once we start having this, we're already analyzing and gaining insights. So we can tell from here that, oh, the web development course is a course with the most subscribers, right? We can also look at, let me see, prices, whether prices were free or were paid. Can come here and do something like a slicer. Okay, so this is not what we need, rather. Just going to delete this. So we need the cost payment status instead. Just going to come here and add as a slicer. So we have it as either free or paid. So this is what happens when I click on free. Tells us these are the free courses, right? As it's paid, these are the paid subscribers. So let's also look at it from here as well. Just going to come here and report connections. Select this. So this is the free courses. So we can see that free courses here, there were 96 free business courses, 35 design courses were free, 46 of them were free. Web development had 134 free courses, and we had paid courses. Most of the courses were paid and the likes. So we can also decide to look at maybe revenue, right, for those courses. Revenue that was made for those courses. So that would be price. Yep, so price by the subject. So let's do price by the subject, right? So in this case, we can be able to see for the courses that were paid, right? These are the amounts, right, for each of those subjects. $81,000 for business, and then we can see web design having the most. For free courses, you can see they all had 0, right? So this is giving us all the insights. Revenue by subjects, right? So this is giving us insights already into this particular stuff. And then I'm just going to keep this around here. And we can start deciding that, oh, we want to visualize this. Let me put this here. Just going to cancel this for now. I can decide that we want to have this visualized, right? So we are going to, let me see. Come here, people table analyze. Going to, okay, so just come here and then insert my recommended charts. See, so I'm going to insert my charts, and I can do my bar charts, right? Yep, so I can do my bar chart here, and this is it. So we don't actually have much time, but yes, we can be able to have this done properly. And I'm going to remove the axis. Yep, I'm also going to remove the grid lines. I'm going to remove the legend because I don't need it. So I need data labels, but I'm going to bring it outside, inside end, much better. And then let's see. So I think that's that. I'm going to remove the title, chart title, unless I specifically need that. So I can call this revenue by subject. Take it down here. Let's click and hide all field buttons on charts, right? So this is it. This is what we have. And we can likewise do the same thing for all of our works. So we can likewise do the same thing for all of our works and make sure that we have them properly. So this is it. And yep, I think we're good so far. Let's see, currency. So we can currency this and then, oops. So yep, we can do this and then we'll find this way. Then lastly, we can just come here and maybe sort them properly. Sort by the prices. And this is what we have, right? So we have this and we can be able to start building our visuals with it, right? So there's so much that we can be able to do. And then here we can see what happens. There's no free courses here, so we have 0. There's paid, so this is what we have. If we also come here and maybe, for example, we do something like published. Okay, so I left my published timestamp. So let's do this, add as a timeline. So I can also decide to do something like this. This is from 2017. So September 2017, there was nothing, right? So let's assume that we have months. Okay, so I think it was not up to that. So let me see, quarters. So it's only Q2, Q3, and Q4 for year 2015, 2016, and 2017. So these are what we have. So we can see how they are moving, right? And then we can be able to get our insight. So likewise, we can also visualize for the other ones, and then we can find out what quarter of the year had the most revenue, right? And how can we be able to so for 12 and keeps on going until all of these, and this is it. So I think last year is Q4 27, Q3 2017. Right. So yeah, that's about that. I believe we're good. Right. Let me know if you have any questions. We could have gotten more into visualizing the data, but we don't have much time. For case of the URL column, do we need it for analysis? Oh yes, absolutely. So it could have been opted out. Yes, if you don't need it. But so one thing I usually do is if the column does not pose as a problem to my work, I think it's as good as just letting it be there. Right, it's not causing me issues, or it's not making me wrap my head to start thinking what I have to do with it. So it's just there, so no big deal. Right, so I believe that works. Now, when it comes to visualizing your data, right, it's important to understand that you have to keep your work really simple. Give me a moment. I'm just going to open up my drive and let me see. So when you're visualizing your data, right, it's important to keep it really, really simple. Okay, so I think I can share my screen. So we can, oh, so this is like a coding instead. Yeah. So we can do something like this, right? Using Excel, and then you're able to visualize it. So it's important that when you're building your reports, right, whether in Excel, whether in Power BI, whether in Tableau, or whatsoever you're looking at, right, ensure that you keep your work very simple, right? You do not want your work to be so complicated and complex that anyone would not be able to understand it. So this was done using Excel. Now you can be able to see how everything here is properly understood. You can tell, oh, based on the genre of the movie, what movie had the most traction, right? It was drama. And then you can also tell there were 19% of TV shows than actual movies. And you can also see here the movies by their genres, and movie genres by the number of movies that are attributed to each of them, the early release of movies, how many movies and TV shows were released per year. You have total movies, total days, and the likes, right? So it's pretty much easy for you to understand it and then be able to make informed decisions. This was also done using Excel, right? So we can be able to see how all of these were can be able to help influence your decision making as a data analyst. Sales by the customer segments. Also, in this case, we can see that most of our sales were by the consumers, right? Consumer type of customers, right? So we need to improve more on the customers that are more focused on home office products, right? And see how we can be able to improve their buying powers to make sure that they perform well, while also making sure that consumer customers stay patronizing all the time. You can also see the best manager in this case was Alicia Caldwell, the best customer. So maybe you need to do like a customer loyalty program, right? So Shamila is like that go-to guy, and then maybe other persons as well. You can cite, oh, welcome back to our store again, and we have some stores for you like this, like this, like this. So you can also find out the products that have performed best, right? Which is the Canon image class, advanced copier, and then next and next and next. So you also can be able to find the least performing products and figure out what insights can be done. You can also see the performance based on team. So you need to figure out why is the alpha team performing really, really less compared to the Charlie team. What is the Charlie team doing that is different from what the alpha team seems to be doing? How can we improve the alpha team to make sure that they are top performing, right? Or they become top performers, right? And then you can also look at the various locations. Now, in this case, this is not labeled. However, by looking at it, you can still be able to tell, oh, the dark shaded places mean that there were more sales in places like California, Nevada, and Texas compared to any other regions in the US that this store had their outlets in, right? So you can see the very lighter parts. There were less sales in those places, right? And then you can figure out how can we be able to improve better. And of course, you have your recommendations for the reports. Give me a moment. So the report is a sales deals for a Canadian supermarket chain called Superstore. Total sales for the entire period were this with a profit of this. Inside for the report, the best performing customer segment is consumer with a sales of over this. Best performing region is West. Performing product by sales is Canon this, followed by this, and then this, right? So you can also look at the less performing ones. And then here are some recommendations for the management of this organization. The Superstore can target more sales to the corporate and home office customer segments to improve on those aspects, and also focus on the sales in the West region where they seem to not be performing well. They can promote the Canon image class even more for higher sales since they are the best performing products, right? It's important to note that this is just a snapshot of the data, and more analysis can be done to make sure that this comes out even more better, right? So we can be able to perform all of these. This was done using Excel. The other also was done using Excel. So many other things that we can as well do using Excel. Now, for visualizing your data, it's important, like I mentioned, keep it simple and very, very focused. Make sure that you're focusing on the things that matter. There are so many things that you can visualize in your data, but you don't have to visualize everything. Put out only what's very, very important, right? So that it can be able to influence decision making more faster and better, right? Also stick to one key message per chart. So if you're doing the sales team performance, you can see looking at the sales team, how they're performing and how you can be able to understand it even better. Then I think one thing that we always miss out on a lot of times is on the aspect of using the right chart, right? So it's important, know what chart you want to use at what point in time and how it properly communicates that particular data. So this was done using Power BI, right? But of course, you want to know, oh, what chart am I using at what point in time? Is this a good chart? Is this a good chart? For sales by month, should I use a line chart or can I use a pie chart like this, or donut chart rather, which is absolutely terrible when visualizing for time series data or sales by month, right? So you need to be sure of the type of charts that you'll be using. Know the charts that represent what type of data, right? Line series, line types of charts or visuals should work best or works best for time series data to show trends over a certain period of time and all of those. So you want to know, what am I using? A scatter plot would basically help you find out relationships between one variable and another, right? So you understand all of those, and you also make sure that you're not using colors that are way off. Very, very important when visualizing your data. Do not use colors that are way, way, way off, right? So you can see, okay, I think this was done about last year or so. So yep, you can try some of this as well. Pretty much simple. Revenue by subjects, subscribers by subjects, subscribers by the courses, subscribers by levels, and then we can see the yearly revenue and how the revenue has actually moved based on each year, right? That the courses were published, right? So we can be able to just keep it really simple, use colors that actually make sense and communicate great meaning. So we have color differences here, which basically help you to distinguish one particular category from another. So you can be able to tell, oh, this is 16%. I don't know what this is, but I can be able to look deeper and then I can understand that 16% here is for business finance, 9% is for graphic design, this is for musical, and this large guy here is for my web development, right? So using the right colors help you to be able to better communicate your insights or findings. Of course, ensure that you have your work properly labeled. You can see it's well labeled. I'm not waiting for my audience to start looking that, oh, this is supposed to be under 250, so they should be able to figure it out themselves, right? So it's properly labeled so that anyone can be able to look at it and get the exact information it is trying to communicate, right? And yep, that's about that. So in some cases, you want to highlight key takeaways. Maybe you're trying to make a point that this is the guys to look out for, right? Let's look at what is going on in the Learn HTML5 course, right? It seems to have way high performance compared to the other guys. And then yes, you can denote it with a different color shade, right? And then your audience understands, oh, there's something to look out for this particular guy, and you should be good. You should be good. Now, also notice something else that I did in the Excel work, right? Which was to sort the data. I'm just going to stop sharing and share that part, which was to sort the data. So it's very important that you have your work properly sorted so that you are able to properly read meaning into them where necessary. So I was talking about this particular case where I had it sorted, and then we can be able to see all the data. So it goes from top to bottom, or you can decide to keep it from bottom to top, right? So however you want it, I think we need the axis title. Yep. So we need this, yeah. So yep. And once you have all of those things implemented in your work, you should be doing just fine, right? So that's about that. That's about that. And I think we're good. Right. So if you have any questions, let me know. Otherwise, you can call it the unrelated. How do you keep up with the industry trends in terms of the tools for analysis? As we all know, things change faster now. So to be very frank, it's a lot. It's really, really a lot. But of course, um, if you don't do it, someone else is definitely going to do it, and you most likely will get replaced by that person who is doing it, right? So yeah, so you just have to keep up. So you're always on the lookout for new technology trends. Once it's been adopted, you also want to make sure that you're upskilling in that regards, right? So you can agree with me that the same processes that used to be in the olden days are no longer the same processes that we use now. For example, I tell people a lot that AI is not going to replace you, right? But whoever is utilizing it better is going to definitely replace you. So we can think about cases where there are typewriters in the past, and then with the betterness of computers, computers did not replace the typewriters, right? But the people who were using typewriters and stuff and refused to upskill, they lost their jobs to people who were already working with computers better, right? So yep, so the same thing also just happens. It did not replace the particular role or anything, but it replaced people who were good at that would replace you that decide that you want to have a strong head and not learn anything. So that's just that. But other than that, I think we're all good. We just keep learning every day. And yep, yep, yep. So I think we've come to the end of the demo session, right? So I think I'll hand it over to Joy. If there are any questions, you can put it put it to her, and then we'll probably get in touch.
All right. Thank you so much, Samuel. I know as many of us that listened and followed very well, it's just clear what I said in the beginning was not lamba. For non-Nigerians, it's just a slang to say to mean soothsaying or to mean I'm not saying the entire truth. Well, I mean, I'm sure we've all learned a whole lot. Samuel has really impacted, and he has brought clarity to things that really seemed foggy to a whole lot of us. And for some people that feel like they do not get it, they do not understand some things, the recording will be made available. Yeah, all right, before we upload on YouTube, we'll share the recording on Google Drive, and then we'd also upload on YouTube. So you can, but uploading on YouTube would be later, so we'll just provide the Google Drive. So I'd just like us to, from I don't know how we want to appreciate Samuel, either with um by dropping a chat or a message in the chat box or with our emojis. But please and please, can we all say a big thank you to Samuel? I want to say a virtual applause. I want to say us giving him his flowers because he has really helped us out in today's session. And Samuel, we're only but saying thank you. I'm sure you just seem as a soothsayer, but it's fine. I'm really grateful. We at Stake Up, we are really grateful. So thank you very much. And thank you for your time. You even stayed more than the time you planned to stay. So yes, guys. So I think I'll just let us know that yes, in as much as we want to have these mentoring sessions as often as we can, it's also dependent on the schedule of our mentors, right? And because of that, we've also set up peer-led tutorials where you questions you have probably from the learning platforms, places that it's not has not been clear, you can just put it up in the on the group, and then some of our peer tutors will take that up, schedule classes, and solve those problems for us. And yes, we always would still have mentoring sessions. Yes. All right. So I think that brings us to the end of today's meeting. So thank you very much, Sam.